Okay, Cecile, it's nice to see you again and continue our conversation. Actually, I first thought that with the last stream, that was the end of our wave, or it's such a, yeah, as I said to you before, it's like a dream. Yeah, for me, it's a dream for a lifetime or something. And I also noticed from people contacting me or people who read the dream that it really puts them in the place of the dreamer or in the position of the people looking at the altar. So it's a dream that many people seem to be able to identify with, also people with non-Christian backgrounds or that I've spoken to. But you felt maybe the wave is not done. There is something more. So we looked in the forest. Yeah, there was another fish. There was something still in the net that had catched your attention and that you felt, yeah, somehow that it belongs in here within this wave. Yeah.
Yeah, looking the other way, I think we've all been really touched by that dream. But yes, at the end of a wave, there's a different intensity maybe at the end of a wave. And I also felt that perhaps rather than leaving everybody with a highly intense image, we can maybe just stay with some open questions. And for me, that last dream of this wave does that for me. It really asks questions to me about consciousness, about our place in the world. And that feels more like an ending with an openness and more questions.
Yes. And I also think, yeah, it's an interesting contrast to the dream looking the other way and the church and our conversation about churches, but also this whole question of a holding space for dreams or for the unconscious or for our spiritual sides. How does the vessel look today, and what is a vessel to contain individual experiences like this? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious what our listeners will think about this dream.
I am dreaming, but I am also meditating within the dream. I am walking through a semi-abstract version of my hometown, observing the scene, looking at people I feel I know. I realize that I am meditating, watching thoughts bubble up, observing them without diving into them, letting them pass. Then, after a period where everything fades to white, the outside world begins folding inward, everything condensing toward a single point, flipping the outside to the inside. The experience grows increasingly bright until a bluish, cosmic perception emerges. It feels like intense mental concentration, concentrated energy deep within consciousness itself. Then comes a sudden transformative shift. I realize that all ancient traditions point to the same truth. Consciousness is fundamental. We are individual expressions of one universal, sentient consciousness trying to experience itself. This triggered a shocking realization. I am responsible for the entire history of existence, of Earth, of myself and others. I have the responsibility to dream a healthy future, not a dystopian one.
Well, the dreamer is dreaming, but also meditating within the dream. that makes me just think about, okay, this begins with a dreamer, he's dreaming, but also meditating. So he's doing two different things within the same dream. We know, of course, many people try to do a lot of things in dreams. I'm thinking about this lucid dreaming, for example. Oh, I can go in and I can direct the narrative and such. And I think those techniques have some value for people for a period at least. But it still puts a lot of emphasis on the sort of, I don't know, on the ego or on the sort of being a driving force or maybe also controlled. So it seems, yeah, I don't know what you think about it. It seems like, yeah, both an ordinary and a not so ordinary beginning.
Yes. And from the start, it has something to do with consciousness. Initially, to myself, I was calling this dream kind of the consciousness dream. Because what is consciousness? It's such a complicated word, isn't it? There's the kind of Carl Jung has certainly wrestled with that word, and other people before that, and different traditions across the world attach different meanings to consciousness. In Buddhism or other traditions, they might have a quite particular meaning, certain quality.
Yes. And our dreamer is not his conscious choice for this inversion to happen. Yeah? It's everything stays to white, the outside world begins to fold in, and it then starts to condense towards a single point. And then he writes that he says that the experience grows increasingly bright until a bluish cosmic perception emerges. So this is happening outside of his will, it seems, or his.
Yes, I don't know. It's interesting for anyone who does practice meditation at the beginning. It clearly is what most of us are familiar with in terms of you're observing the scene, like you say, you're walking on, you're observing the scene, looking at people, and then there's the watching thoughts bubble up and observing them and not diving into them and letting them pass. Now, that is the normal flow of meditation, whereby there is consciousness and there is also a letting go of the conscious thoughts, and which is an act of will and an act of consciousness in itself, but of letting go. But then by the time that white comes in, it's a mental concentration, concentrated energy deep within consciousness itself. Now, that doesn't feel like what I know of Zen meditation, which is the one I know better, but it's a different form of consciousness exercise or spiritual practice. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't involve the letting go.
Then comes a sudden transformative shift, a sudden transformative shift. I realized that all ancient traditions point to the same truth. Consciousness is fundamental. We are individual expressions of a one universal sentient consciousness trying to experience itself. So there is this, yeah, I don't know, Satori experience, or there is something of some sort of insight, some sort of vision that comes to life after all this concentration. And it's a vision or realization that brings together, yeah, all traditions to the same point. It's something, yeah, it's a universal, it's a cosmic sort of insight, it seems, that this dreamer has. And this insight is to triggers then this shocking realization as well. It's not just a realization, it's a shocking realization. And that is that I am responsible for the entire history of existence, of Earth, of myself and others. I have the responsibility to dream a healthy future, not a dystopian one. Huge responsibility lands in the lap or in the mind of this dreamer. Shocking. It's a shocking realization.
Yes, and I really recognize myself in that process of really experimenting with consciousness and really wanting to see how far do you go with this, and driven by your spiritual practice, where does that take you? I had my own experience of this when I was partly led by a dream. I wanted to create through embroidery. an image of the world in a pearl. And I started doing this embroidery, must have been working on it. So of course it's a bit bigger than an actual pearl. It's about 20, 30 centimeter kind of diameters. And I worked on it for a few months. And then somehow the energy drained out. And for about 6 years, I didn't touch it. And at that point, I was going through my training and I was in analysis, and I mentioned it to my analyst, when I said, oh yes, this is the world in a pearl, said to me, you're not going to finish this one, are you? And this was exactly the kind of push that I needed to go back to it and say, no, I will finish it. Because it is an impossible task. Like you can't do that. And yet I feel this is the challenge that our humanity brings. How can you experience the infinite within our finite lives? And how can I still have some form of perception of the whole world, but within a very finite kind of 30 centimeter wide kind of embroidery? And it's not perfect. And I finished it, and I can't even say I like it, but it really, to me, it reminds me of having sought the infinite and having then had to find my way back to a finite and a kind of limited expression of it, which I'm not entirely satisfied with, but it's got the best and the worst of me in it.
Yes. That reminds me of one, just again, Jung's drawings, and when he started to draw those mandalas, and how and why in that tradition many people turn to that as well. It's if you don't do embroidery, but like finding what a mandala does to hold this type of universal or cosmic energy somehow, needing still to hold it together, and then and then also bring that in connection to one's own personal biography, one's own limitations, as we say, and things close to home.
But our dreamer is in a different place at this moment. I really recognize his efforts and his intense concentration. And I really sympathize with the burden also that he finds himself under at the end. I am responsible to dream a healthy future.
Yeah, I'm still wondering also the pressures of this. There's no Buddha or no Christ or just a person being confronted with the universal truth. So I'm wondering about that. How much is it upon us to take things on? Because when I'm thinking of the dream from last time, I'm still putting myself in the position of the naked dreamer in the middle of the aisle. I'm still can easily put myself in the congregation, staring at something going on. And probably at times I can also identify with Christ hanging on the cross. But I still wonder, because I've been wondering about that dream. The dreamer's interest, understandably, you could say, is towards the congregation. But what about what is alive? He's alive. And I guess I'm wondering about finding the right position in life where we maybe not everyone needs Christ, but needing some sort of something that is alive where we can actually give away and hand over all this responsibility. Because it sounds like it can be crushing.
Yeah.
And maybe it is crushing many individuals today. The helplessness of not knowing and what does it mean to dream a healthy future, not a dystopian one. That can, of course, be a very grounded exercise that can very much start at home.
I think the link with our previous dream is really relevant. I remember discussing with you also the shocking realization of I am seeing Christ on the cross, and maybe I am the only person seeing him. And that is a shocking realization. And it's a very heavy burden and responsibility on the dreamer. And I wonder whether there is something of that nature as well for this dreamer, of experiencing a very deep sense of the whole world, but perhaps also being left with this incredible and very overwhelming question. What do you do with it? And in the previous dream, as we are thinking of all this, we become more sympathetic towards the congregation, perhaps the role of the congregation to help the dreamers come back to everyday life and the ordinary aspect of being in community, being limited in what we can achieve from all the potency and intensity of our spiritual life. A lot of us have to make choices around where am I going to practice? Is my Zen group good enough for me? Is my church all right for me? And it's never perfect, and there are always complicated dynamics and things like that. And this is sort of the tension that seems to happen between, again, it's infinite and the limitations of our ordinary human life as well.
Yeah, I like that a lot, to see the positive in this congregation and in this people. To not judge that, but to look at that, that's something, rather valuable. But I guess when I read this dream, there is this, I don't know, I guess there is this risk to identify. Jung would say maybe a risk to identify with the self, or like that this type of experiences can also be creating some sort of inflation, that we become like Christ, or we become the person that's going to save. Or I think that's something that any person who have had intense encounters will struggle with. But
Yes.
and that's where, again, I think our last dream shows different positions. So identifying with Christ, standing naked with 2 feet on the floor, looking the other way, or being in communion with others. Yes, I'm sure we all move through these different positions in our life. But the dreamer in the dream seems, it seems like he's very much left alone with his responsibility.
Yes. Yes. I think that's right. Yeah. I think the light and consciousness is intoxicating, and our spiritual life can also be intoxicating.
That makes me think of that scene in the Red Book when Jung is struggling with the question of Christ and Christi and what it means for him, and he goes very far in his thinking and in his experience, but then he can't go further, and he realizes, he says something like, I have to return to simple life again. But
Yeah.
this is, I need to return to simple life again. And, let go of this this concentration.
That's right. Yes, we are in contact with the eternal and the infinite, but we are mortals, and so our role is to always bring it back, have a contact with it and bring it back. Our dreamer sense that to bring it back is to dream a healthy future. But of course, we don't really control our dreaming either. We don't even know whether we are the ones dreaming. You were asking that question last time, weren't we? We are dreamt. Who is doing the dreaming? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of dreamers out there. And I feel like this been, and I guess I want to say thank you so much for the people who shared their dreams in this way. It feels it's precious, and for giving us this chance to engage in this experiment. And as we've also said before, many of these dreams don't need much talking or much context, but yeah, we've been trying our best to just yeah have some sort of conversation around it, and I think it's really inspiring to see also other people conversing and thinking of other people, yeah, carrying these dreams around and reflecting on them. And when we're ready for a new wave, until then we'll be reading dreams that are sent in, and we'll be looking if there's any fish in the net. And but we'll take a little pause.
Yes, you suggested that before we completely pause, and that might be the end of the wave, we take a bit of time to reflect on what happened and what were the themes, and would really like to do that, to look back at all our dreams and to identify what was the theme or what were the themes for this particular wave. And I think that would be a nice way to end it and to really honor what we've been given. Just echoing your thanks to the dreamers. What a gift. Every single of these dreams have been so present to us and to so many people. And we know that because they've told us.
Yes. And also there are dreams that we haven't read that also were important, we thought of, and but that's also a nature of this that we have had to exclude.
Yeah.
Dreams. As you're saying this about looking back, I'm wondering maybe if we should invite our dreamers for that conversation. And yeah, maybe we'll see if some of you are interested in joining us in the conversation, maybe on Substack, or we find a place and talk about what we experienced.
Yes, absolutely. This was always, we wanted it as a collective experiment. The reality and the practicality of it is that we ended up, you in Berlin, me in England, and speaking with each other about these dreams. But this is not what this is about. It's not you in your bubble and me in my bubble. This is really an attempt to open up collective dreams to a wide range of people. And so, yes, the more we can feel the presence of our dreamers and our listeners, the better. So
Yes,
that would be wonderful.
the invitation will come, and maybe we'll get some martinis as well. Okay, to be continued.